JYP is about to terrorize the United States. I'm kidding. JYP is actually really good at what he does. I think we just have a good time making jokes about him. In 2022, JYP and Republic Records announced that they would be hosting a competition series to create an American global K-pop group. The survival show finally premiered last week. It's called A2K, which stands for America to Korea. Basically, the show is going to take American contestants and put them through the K-pop training system in order to create a global girl group. JYP is recognized as one of the leaders in K-pop. Before BTS and the creation of HYBE, the K-pop industry had what was known as the Big Three, which were the three top entertainment industries producing the top K-pop groups. I mean, they're still known as the Big Three, it's just that HYBE is now also a major player, so it's like there's Big Four. Those three companies being SM Entertainment, YG Entertainment, and JYP Entertainment. And JYP himself, or JY Park, or Park Jin-young, he is the founder and CEO of JYP, and he's basically the face of A2K along with the other survival shows that created JYP groups like 16 that created Twice, and Stray Kids that created Stray Kids. JYP is basically the main judge on this show, and he's working in partnership with Republic Records, which is an American record label owned by Universal Music Group, and they have some of the music industry's biggest names signed, including Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Stevie Wonder, to name a few. Republic Records also signed Twice, JYP's biggest girl group, back in 2020, and they now play a huge role in running Twice's promotions in the US. Now that K-pop has not only grown in popularity globally, but is also finally being taken seriously in the US, racism, xenophobia, those are topics I'd love to get into another day. I think it's no surprise that these American record labels want to tap into that and have stakes in the promotion of these K-pop groups. But something that, to be honest, I didn't see coming, and now I kind of feel a little silly for it, is these American companies not only want to promote K-pop groups, now they want to have a say in actually creating their own K-pop groups. Which, I'm not gonna lie, is kind of annoying because these American companies fought back so hard to keep big groups like BTS down, to downplay their popularity and the popularity of K-pop as a whole, reducing the popularization of K-pop to just a phase, or trying to tie it back to something like Beatlemania, just for the sake of not wanting to acknowledge the uniqueness and the legitimacy of K-pop. But now, like I said, K-pop has become so popular globally that these American companies can no longer deny K-pop is profitable. K-pop means money, and these American companies, they love their money. I mean, don't get me wrong, Korean companies also really love their money. So I think that JYP and Republic Records were really smart for not only wanting to create this group, but also doing it through a reality series. We've seen in the past that K-pop survival shows create some of the most loyal and dedicated fan bases, and now that these big names in the industry are working together to create this American-based K-pop group, I wouldn't be surprised to see more companies try that in the future. I mean, even in the past, SM Entertainment tried to make NCT Hollywood, which I don't know what happened with that, but anyways. So far, the first 3 episodes of A2K have been released on JYP's YouTube channel, and actually by the time I upload this, episode 4 will be up as well. And I wanted to make this video to give my review and to give my reactions on the show so far. Depending on how I like it, I might continue to follow the series and make update videos, so if that's something that you are interested in seeing, let me know in the comments down below. I will say, one thing that I'm hesitant on about watching this show, and really any K-pop survival series from now on, is their ages. Most of the contestants that we saw in episodes 1 and 2 were anywhere between 16 to 17, but one of them was 12 years old. And she has fans. And then after that, there were also a few 13-year-olds, which is unfortunate because one of them's actually really good. I'm in my 20s, and obviously I'm not a freak, so I'm not looking at these girls in a weird way. And I do love K-pop, and I love the arts in general. I've always loved watching singing and dancing, survival, and reality shows. That's just always been a love of mine, and of course, child stars have always been a thing. But because I know how rigorous the K-pop industry is, and also how deep the parasocial relationships run in K-pop fandoms, it does make me uncomfortable to see kids competing in these shows and to see literal children, preteens debuting. I plan on making a video about that soon, by the way. But I decided I do want to watch this show because, again, I'm not a freak, and this is like a really unique concept. It's gonna be the first American survival show for a K-pop group, and it's happening between 2 of the biggest entertainment industries in the world. So I am curious to see what comes out of this. So, episode 1. The show begins with JYP basically kissing his own ass. There's this montage montage of him being hyped up and praised by the contestants as the creator of JYP and also as a soloist.
Of course, I'm a fan of JYP.
I love him so much.
He's like an amazing artist.
And he has this monologue about how he's been like a pioneer in the space, which again, he has been. Honestly, he was kind of gassing himself up and I kind of love that. Like, okay, confident king, we love knowing your self-worth. There was this one moment where he mentioned black soul music and how that's had an influence on what he's done in his career. And I love that. I would hope that this global group has at least one black member, if not multiple. K-pop would not exist without black people, black culture, black influence. That is a fact. And then we're basically told how this show's gonna work. A2K is starting with auditions in 5 major cities, and the chosen contestants will be taken to a boot camp in LA, where for 1 week they'll undergo different challenges and evaluations to then be selected to go to Korea and train at JYP Entertainment. From there, the final selection is made on who is debuting in this global girl group. I think that's kind of crazy, especially considering that this isn't a typical K-pop survival show where the contestants are coming as trainees from existing companies. For A2K, basically anyone could audition, even if you never had any formal training. And if you're selected, you're just gonna get thrown head in first into this boot camp in LA, and you only have 1 week to prove yourself. You have 1 week to convince them that you deserve that spot to go to train in Korea. So the way it goes is first, contestants are judged by JYP's training team and their EVP. If they make it past that audition, then they get to audition in front of JYP himself, and he has the final say in who gets selected to go to the boot camp in LA. And something I liked about this show is they didn't waste time showing us the failed auditions. It's not like American Idol where you see the successful auditions and also the flops. We're only shown the girls who not only made it to audition in front of JYP himself, but were also selected to go to the boot camp in LA. I mean, it's also good because, again, these are children, and to humiliate them like that would not be a good thing. Throughout episodes 1 and 3, we're getting to know the contestants that were given that pass to the LA bootcamp. That pass is in the form of a pendant necklace. When a girl is selected for the bootcamp, JYP gives them a necklace with empty spaces that can hold gemstones, and it looks like they can collect those stones as they successfully make it through challenges at the LA bootcamp. And if I'm not mistaken, only the girls who fill up their pendant necklace with the stones can go to Korea. Episode 1 shows us the auditions in Dallas and Chicago. We meet 17-year-old Camila Valdes, 16-year-old Kendall Ebeling, and 16-year-old Lexus Vang. We start off with Camila, who's actually a nursing student, and she's been singing since she was really young. She's competed in vocal competitions with her brother, and she was actually a contestant on The Voice Canada. She used falsetto in some of her singing, and JYP challenged her to use her full voice, which he demonstrated himself with like a little bit of self-satisfaction. This man. Honestly, I'm putting JYP on my vision board. I aspire to be that level of self-pleased. She gets challenged to sing with the fuller voice, and she got it. She had a very, I'll work hard and I understand what I need to do attitude, and I really liked that. I think it's great for the trainee mindset. So of course, she got a pass. Kendall was an interesting one because I think we got a little bit of a taste of how visuals play into K-pop. Oh, it's so annoying to say that, but it's the truth. They had this section where they panned to the staff, basically reacting to Kendall's appearance, and it's very obvious that they're trying to suggest like, oh, she's cute, she's got the look. Her story was interesting because she actually studied abroad in Korea, and she was able to do like a K-pop intensive. She has a ballet, jazz, and lyrical background. Love that for her. So that made me really excited to see her dance performance, but when it came time to see her piece, I felt that the moves were a little bit messy and not fully accurate. She did have a good performance though, which is something that JYP complimented her for, but this is where we get the first of many funny JYP comments.
Even though you're so lacking in skill,
this man, he'll drag you and then he'll give you a pass to LA. You might have noticed the lighting was changing. The sun moved so much that it's now actually the next day, so don't mind that. Finally, we have 16-year-old Lexus Vang. She's actually one of my favorite contestants so far. Lexus had trained as a ballerina from ages 4 to 16, and she said that what really got her into K-pop was the dance aspect, which I really resonated with because that's exactly what got me into K-pop. I loved the dancing. She talked about how quitting ballet was really hard for her, and it was actually a little bit of an emotional moment, and JYP gave her some really good advice about how we're meant to explore different things in our lives.
Trust me, I was a student in college majoring geology. It's a journey. We don't know what we like because you will never know what you want unless you try a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So
And you know, as much as we clown him, I think there are several moments throughout the show where we see JYP like this. You can tell that he wants to be a mentor to these kids, not just as trainees, but also as humans. I actually noticed that when I watched 16, which is the show that created Twice. Like, he made a point out of trying to teach Twice that you have to be good people, not just good idols. I like that. Shout out to JYP. Her singing wasn't her strong suit, and she did make a mistake, but she kept going, and she has a pretty vocal tone. I could see the potential. Also, her dancing reminded me a lot of mine. She has a lot of power in her movements, and she can hit them pretty sharply, which I imagine comes from the ballerina training, you know, being very precise with her movements, but sometimes that can come off as a little bit stiff. I've been called stiff many times in my life before because I can kind of be stiff. My background is in cheerleading, so sometimes that translates into my dancing. And JYP did mention that himself.
if you just let yourself be loose, you're gonna grow so fast.
Next is episode 2, where we meet 17-year-old Melissa, 17-year-old Cristina, and 16-year-old Savannah. Melissa actually came to the audition all the way from Ontario, Canada, and I really liked her. My first impression of her was she's very confident, and we actually find out later that she's an actress, so that kind of explains it. She seemed comfortable on camera and also really comfortable with the way that she presents herself. She's a singer and songwriter, and she's actually been doing that since 2016, which I thought was really impressive, and I like to see that. I like seeing that these contestants do have like a very experienced background in the arts. It also suggests that there's like a level of professionalism there, which I think could be really important as they head into this trainee system. She also mentioned that she's had some hardships with her family and how she wants to translate that into her music, which plus points for me. I love when there's like an emotional story and like a reason behind why they're doing what they're doing. JYP seemed to like that too. He actually had a little bit of an emotional response to her story. First impression on her vocals, it sounded like it could use some work. Some notes were out of tune, and it seems like her technique wasn't consistent throughout the song, and I think I was right because JYP had some feedback for her.
It's not great.
So I think she has work to do, but personality-wise, I like her. And literally, as I thought that to myself, JYP said,
I like the person more than her skills.
that was me, like Jin Young, we're like this. Next is Cristina, who says she is a singer and dancer with a very musical background in her family. She was interesting because it turns out she has like her own dance studio where she teaches dance classes. I mean, I do that too. I'm a K-pop instructor at a few dance studios, but she kind of started her own business, opening up her own studio space and offering her own classes. I think that's so impressive, especially she's like, what, 17? And she also has her own K-pop dance cover team. So she actually started off her audition with singing, and I think some of her notes were flat, and JYP actually cut her off in the middle of her song, but he seemed to not have too harsh of feedback. I think he basically suggested that he can tell she hasn't been trained in singing, but that's actually a good thing because he'd rather work with people who don't have training so he can set up their good technique. No training is better than having bad training and having developed bad habits. Her dancing, clean, super accurate in her details, and she had really good control of her movement. I think where she can grow is her stage presence. She was smiling throughout her entire routine, but I wanted more. I wanted more emotion. So I thought she was a pretty good dancer, but then JYP was like, you're an amateur.
Your dance is very amateur.
But kind of like with her singing, he did mention that she doesn't have bad habits in her dancing, which is a good thing because that's something that they can work with. Another example of how even though JYP says anything, he's actually very encouraging with the compliments that he does give. Next, we had Savannah Collins and Kaylee Lee. Savannah is 16 years old from Fort Lauderdale, Texas, with a background in gymnastics. JYP pointed out that her having that background in gymnastics could be a really good advantage because a member with that kind of talent can add a lot to K-pop groups. And I liked hearing that from JYP because it made me think about how when these people audition to become trainees in a company, the company's really looking at everything, like what do you have to offer as an individual that can bring an extra element to the group. When it came to her audition, she seemed really confident in her stage presence, but she did mess up a few moves and her moves weren't fully extended. I'm not gonna lie, JYP said what I was thinking.
You look good and you look bad and then you look good, and
But then I was reminded he is a menace.
when you're not sure about the moves, then you suddenly become such a bad dancer. You know what I'm saying?
And then she started rapping.
Return to the Mac. Get up what it is, what it does, what it is, what it isn't.
Finally, we have 12-year-old Kaylee Lee. She was actually really funny. She said she started training with the vocal trainer the week before. Honestly, she kind of ate. And throughout her segment, she kept getting the cutesy edit, which makes sense because she is 12 years old, but that bothered me. I was like, let's not glorify that these literal preteens are trying to debut. Let's keep them in school, please. Anyway, she did have a pleasant voice. I liked the sound of it. And her feedback was that she had really good breathing technique. Her dancing,
Not confident in dancing.
Obviously, you're not that good.
JYP, But you know what? I think she has a lot of potential. She has really good energy and she does have stage presence. She looked like she was having fun and she looked confident while she was doing it, so good for Kaylee. Finally, we have episode 3, which takes us through the LA auditions, and it turns out LA had the most applicants, so that audition day was actually split into 2 days. And in this episode, we met 15-year-old KG Crown, 13-year-old Mischa Salkin, 17-year-old Yuna Gonzalez, and 13-year-old Gina. We started off with KG, who was very confident. She came in with her guitar, and turns out she's been in her own band as a singer, guitarist, and pianist, and she's released a few songs in the past, so again, love that professionalism, love that she has a musical background like that. She said that she feels like music is her calling, so I was like, ooh, okay, now I'm really excited to see this. The way I felt about her voice was, and this is very personal opinion, and this is also what makes it hard about wanting to review this show, is because I'm like very hyper aware that these are kids, and also I'm not in the music industry. I am just a spectator and a commentator. Please don't take this too seriously. In my opinion, her voice was really breathy and a little bit nasally, like in a stylized way. And I say stylized because I did notice that her singing voice was a little bit different from her speaking voice. And again, this was another moment where JYP and me, we were like this. He pointed that out too. But she thanked JYP for the advice that he gave her, and she seemed very confident and very sincere in that, which I really liked. I thought, okay, that was really mature and professional of her, especially considering she's 15, so you go, KG. Next up, we had little 13-year-old Mischa Salkin. This is where I felt uncomfortable again because of her age, and I actually didn't have too much to say about her. I did like her audition. It's just that she was a little bit more theatrical with her movements. She did a lot of these hand movements while she was singing, and she got called out for that by JYP. The feedback wasn't too harsh. She was just told to be a little bit more of herself, which I think she could totally do. Next, we have Yuna Gonzalez, which I would say is probably the most shy contestant that we've seen on the show so far. She's the leader of a K-pop group at her school. She said that she tried to join a dance team at her school and they weren't really interested in K-pop dancing, so she said, "Okay, I'll do it myself," and I love that for her. And she makes her team's outfits. She's a stylist and a designer. Like, okay, multi-talented. We love talented Latinas. She actually almost didn't audition for the show because she thought that she didn't meet the age requirement, which 17 years old and thinking you are too old to do this is insane, but it's unfortunately the truth. So I felt like I couldn't judge her audition too hard because she really only had 1 day to prepare since she thought she wasn't gonna be able to audition. Her moves were a little bit messy and not super accurate in details, but again, she only had 1 day to learn the dance. Finally, we finish with 13-year-old Gina, another child, but this one was interesting because she's actually a literal JYP trainee. She's been a trainee with JYP for 8 months and she speaks Korean. She said that she uploaded dance covers to social media and she's even uploaded a few songs onto Spotify. 13 years old, that is crazy. But basically she got scouted through that and she was asked to become a trainee at JYP. So this is an actual trainee. And I thought that was kind of funny because JYP like didn't know that. He was kind of reading her audition paper and he's like, "Oh, you're a trainee at my company." And she was like, "Yeah, I actually met you in the elevator once." And when she said she met JYP in the elevator, she gassed him up and I was like, smart girl.
You look so tall. Like, in my eyes, it was probably because of your charisma.
So her vocals, they were a bit breathy. She had a pretty vocal tone, but I felt like her technique could be stronger. But JYP said that she had really good pitch and power and was basically saying, "You are proof that the JYP system is elite." As for her dancing, I felt that sometimes her movements were a little bit too big, but you can tell this girl is a dancer. You can tell she knows how to move her body and she had great energy. She also had some really good facial moments. So JYP was basically like, "You
just glorified the JYP training system.
You represented JYP so well." So those are the contestants of A2K. My thoughts overall on the show so far are it's pretty interesting. I do want to keep watching, especially because there are a few contestants that I'm like, okay, I want to see how far you could go. And actually, although I am super about Gina being 13 years old, I am curious to see if she'll debut in this group because of the fact that she is already a JYP trainee. I think she could stay a trainee for a few more years and she could become even stronger and debut when she is more mentally prepared as a human. I think it's going to be interesting to see her coming from a trainee system and basically have that advantage against everyone else, even though she's younger than everybody else, except for Kaylee, who is 12. Oh my god. Overall, I would say that I agreed with the feedback that JYP gave the contestants, but there were some times where I felt like maybe a little bit surprised that the critique wasn't harsher in some of the areas. And just looking ahead at the previews for the upcoming boot camp, I'm really excited. I will say this show feels very different from other K-pop survival shows. Again, it's because usually those have trainees like They are in the K-pop training system. They've been training to do this for a few years, whereas this is kind of loose talent just being pulled from different parts of the United States and even outside of the United States. So it definitely has that American survival show and competition show vibe. I'd say so far it feels more like that as opposed to a K-pop survival show, but JYP is also very much in your face, so you're very much aware that yes, this is K-pop. So if you've been watching A2K, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have a favorite trainee? Are you against the ages of these trainees contestants? Oh my god. Do you like the way JYP is running the show? Do you agree with JYP's feedback so far? I might be uploading my reactions as the show progresses. Again, if that's something that you want to see, let me know down in the comments below. Besides that, I have a few vlogs coming up. I just went to go see P1 Harmony in Toronto, which was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. And I'm also seeing P1 Harmony in Mexico this week. So I'm really excited to vlog that too. And besides that, I plan on doing more commentary and like opinion-based videos on my channel as well. So if you have anything you want to see my specific opinion on, let me know in the comments down below. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.